Okay, in this tutorial we're going to fix up the player movement so that they will stay in the screen and can't overlap other objects. We'll destroy the enemy on contact with a bullet and bullet as well. We're going to use some drag and drop for this because it's just quicker and there's not much point in making something overly complex as we would have to do with code when it can be quicker with GML. So what you should be understanding is how it's working, the logic behind it, not so much just how to code. Then we're going to add player health, modify the player script to include the health, and include a game controller to display the health score, etc. So that's the task this time. So to update our player control, because at the moment the player can move outside the bounds of the room, we are going to open up our player control script. And I've added, I'm pretty sure I actually did this last video, I'm not too sure now, but I'm pretty sure I did, this variable at the top, movement speed equals argument 0. So that when I call movement speed from here, player control, I can send a speed, an initial speed. So if I want to test higher speeds, it's very easy for me to just plug a number in there. So I've put in 4. But movement speed equals argument 0. And originally we had something that looks like this. If keyboard check VK up, y minus equals 5. Okay, now I've got y minus equals movement speed, which is set to 4 because I thought 5 was a bit too fast. You can leave yours at 5 if you want, but you want to change this so that it says movement speed. And I've also made some other changes here. So I want to use W, A, S, and D for the movement. So up is W, down is S, left is A, right is D. And what I did was added in a special function that gets the key character for W and plugs it into here. So it's still keyboard check, but instead of VK up, we use ORD and then open brackets, close brackets, and inside that, W, capitals, inside quotations. Now you can put any letter you want or any symbol you want in there and you'll be able to use that key with the exception of another quotation. So if you wanted to do that, you could do double quotations inside or double quotations outside and put single quotation inside. If you wanted to use that key, I can't imagine why you would. But I've used W. And initially that was fine. That was all we needed to be able to move. So that will let you move with W. But we also want to be able to make sure that he can't leave the room. So let's first go and add some stuff in. We'll make it so that he can't collide with those other enemy spawners. And place underscore free, x, y, minus movement speed. Okay, so we're actually checking, is the position he's about to move to, in this case y minus 4, is that free? Okay, so if he's pushing W and the place is free, then we'll move there. Otherwise we won't, nothing will happen. Okay, but we also want to make sure that he's inside the bounds of the room. So and y is greater than 0. However, there is an issue because the center of the sprite where it checks these collisions is actually is not 0, 0 of the actual sprite. So this will kind of let him go halfway out of the room. I know that the sprite size is 16 by 16 and that the center of it must be 8 by 8 or 8, 8. So I'll just go y is greater than 8. And so I've done this with all of these here. If keyboard check ORD S and place free and room is less than room height minus 8, then increase on the Y. That's not actually increasing his speed. This is a variable called movement speed, but it's assigned a number. So it's just increasing Y by that number. And then we check the left and then we check the right. So I should be able to hit play and I'll just disable the enemy spawning for the time being and hit play. And you can see, ignore the bit down the bottom. I can't move outside of here, outside of here. I will be able to go beyond that area there, which I will fix up later and explain what that is. I can't move over there, and I also can't move into those areas. Okay, so our code's working. That part there is working. So let's say that we've done that bit there. So we've fixed the player movement. So make sure that you understand what the code's doing. If you don't understand, ask me and I'll come around and help you to understand that. Of course, if you're watching at home, send me an email. You know my email, and I will reply to you as soon as possible. So let's look at this second part here. Destroy enemy on contact with bullet and bullet 2. It's much quicker for us to do this in drag and drop than it is to actually write the code for it. So we're just going to go into an enemy character and we're going to add a few collision events. Okay, since this is all to do with the enemy character, we're going to add a collision event with the player, and we're also going to add a collision event with the bullet. Okay, we won't need to do it on the others. So collision event with the player, we're going to go to destroy self, and collision event with the bullet, we're going to destroy self. Okay, and collision event with the bullet, we're also going to destroy other. Okay, so that destroys other, destroys self. I can show you what this would look like in code. I can just write it here. It would be instance underscore destroy, and then other dot instance destroy. Or it might actually be with other instance destroy. Okay, so that is the code for it if you prefer to use the code. And because it's such a small piece, you're not really going to need to make a whole script for it because we're unlikely to reuse this. And so we can just chuck it in there. So I'll just test that that code works. And what should happen if I get rid of those comments there? I should be able to destroy the enemies. And both the bullet and the enemy is now destroyed. Okay, so that bit of code is working. I'd rather use the code. If you want to use a drag and drop, you can. The original way with scripting it out all in the same thing would have taken a lot longer. This, we can still use code. We just use a little tiny script of code. It's not a big deal. So object player character, where if I do the code for this, it's going to be instance destroy, so that's going to destroy itself, and then with other, which is in this case the player, object player character, we are going to we're just going to leave it blank for now. Okay, so we will leave it blank, but in here I've got it saying destroy player. There will be a problem. I'll do it anyway so you can see what happens. Instance destroy. Okay, so what's going to happen is there's going to be an error, and I'll explain what's happening. Okay, so it gives me an error. I'm not going to worry too much about explaining this. It says it's a fatal error in action number 1 of step event 0 for object enemy character. Okay, so step event action number 1. And this is the enemy character, step event, action number 1. There's a problem in the script. And it doesn't really tell me what the problem is, but I know what it is because I sat there and read it previously where I was testing this. If you look at this, the enemy is always being told to move towards the object player character's X position and Y position at a certain speed, whatever we tell it to move to. But if this doesn't exist, it can't possibly move towards it. It can't find those variables, and it throws an error and says, I don't know what this is. So if we destroy the player character, it's not going to be able to do this, and it's going to crash. So that's why, for now, I'm just going to leave this part here blank. It'll probably give me an error, but in a minute, excuse me, I'm probably going to sneeze in a sec. I'll just get rid of that. So we've essentially done this part here, destroy the enemy in the bullet, destroy player on contact with enemy. We're going to add player health and score because it's easy. So we're going to add player health and score. So we're going to player character, and I'm going to set up 2 variables in a create event, which I've already done here. So create event, set variable player health to 10. set variable player score to 0. Now we're not going to need to tick the relative button most of the time, okay? Because the stuff that we're doing with the relative, we're going to be doing in code. And then it's going to make more sense that way. I don't like this relative button. It's kind of hard to explain if you can't wrap your head around the concept. So we are going to be doing it a different way. So variable player health value 10, player score value 0. Okay, so going back up to here and opening this code, with other, we are going to do some changes here. So we're going to say player health minus equals 10. So this minus equals is going to reduce it by 10. Click OK. And in here, collide with the bullet, we're going to add in something object underscore player underscore character dot player underscore score plus equals 10. Now the reason I've not put it, I've had to put this in here is because other refers to the object in the collision. Okay, so I have to specifically say what object I want to increase the score on. And that should work. Now, I just realized that in my player character, I only set its health to 10. So in here, I should only reduce it by 1, not 10, or he'll be dead in one go. Now I've already got my HUD displaying the health things down the bottom. So you should see this, the health is going down. When it gets to 0, nothing's going to happen because I haven't told it what to do when it gets to 0. Also, my score is going up. Okay, if I shoot these enemies, the score is going up, like so. Okay, so that seems to be working. Now what I need to do is tell the player what to do when its health gets to 0. So this is pretty easy. If player health, and you can't just type in this however you want. You can't just go if player health or if player health. You have to be consistent. So if you've called it player underscore health, then keep calling it that. You do need, and that's why it's important to call your variables something meaningful, even if it's longer to type them out. Because if you just call it PH, stands for player health, well, that might seem easy when you're typing it, but then you look at it again and go, what the heck is PH? It's not very meaningful. So player health, I can immediately look at that and say, well, that must be the player health. If player health is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to do game underscore end. And these are not just things that I'm typing in and hoping that they're working. They're actually special functions that GameMaker understands. GameMaker knows what game end is. Game underscore end. It doesn't know what game end is. It doesn't know what game capital end is. It doesn't know what game underscore capital end is. It only knows what game underscore end is. All lowercase. Okay, so functions in GameMaker are all lowercase. Spaces in the function names are separated by underscores. It's very much like Python, which is why I've also made my variable names all lowercase with underscores. Okay, so now I should be able to play. I should get down to, I'll just let it get down to 0 health. And then the game ends. Okay, so we've got add player health and score. I did that. Modify player script to include the health. And somehow I must have increased the score somewhere. Let's have a look. Enemy character, object player bullet. Oh, I did. I just did it there. Yep. Okay, so that's all working. The last thing I want to do is get this HUD working. Okay, so I've created an object. It doesn't have a sprite, but it is called object HUD, heads up display. And it's got a draw event on it. And then this draw event does a few things. First of all, I want to set the color that it's going to be drawing with to a dark gray in this case. It doesn't have to be dark grey, it could be anything, but it's dark grey for me. Then I'm going to draw a rectangle. The rectangle's position is going to start at 0 along the X, so on the left side of the game window, and 480 down. So it's actually going to start right at the bottom of the game window. And then the second corner of it, so that's the top left corner, the X1, Y1. The bottom right corner, the X2, Y2, is going to be 640. So that's the width of the room. And I might just type that in, room width. Okay, I'm not going to type room height in there for a reason. And then this is going to be room height here. Okay, so it's going to go to the bottom right corner of the room. It's going to be filled. Okay, so it's going to start at 480. Then I'm going to set the color to white, and I'm going to draw a variable. Draw a variable is under control down here. They have yellow backgrounds. And or if you're using the normal theme, they'll have a green outline around them. If you're using the Steam theme, they'll have a green outline around them. Draw the value of variable player health. And I need to make sure I select object player character. I can do it another way. I can type object underscore player underscore character dot player underscore health. That's one way of doing it. And it's saying the player health component or variable that belongs to the player character. Or I can just select the player character, player health variable that belongs to the player character object. The same thing. I'm going to draw it at X200, Y490. I'm going to do the same with the score, object player character, player score, 400, 490. I might need to play with these values when I get them in the game. Last thing I need to do, go to my test room and resize it. I'm going to resize it to 520. Now, here's where that error that I got very early on comes into play, and that now I can move my player character down the bottom there, okay, which I don't want to be able to do. Oh, it's glitched out on me. There we go. I don't want to be able to move him down here, okay. I don't want to be able to move him into that score area, so I need to make a few small changes. One thing I'm going to do is go into player control, and it's really only this one here, the down one. Okay, so the down one, the S, and I'm going to make it room height. Now I increased the room from 480 to 520. So that's a difference of 40. So if I just add 40 to that number, so room height minus 48. Now I can't go below that area. It won't let me. And I still can't go into there. Okay, so I've got that boundary set up. Okay, so that seems to all be working. I'm going to save my game and stop the video here.